Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Some time ago I thought of doing a video about going through some of the recording processes in Mixcraft, just to showcase how simple and straightforward it is. Now if you just go on to your Mixcraft icon, double click it, it should come up with something similar to this. What I've done differently here is I've taken the master track, so I'll have a master track in the project. You'll have this anyway as just over here, just like a toolbar. But it's easier to work with it if you do automation or other stuff like that. I'll just leave it like that for now, and we'll just keep our snap setting to grid. We can take it off later on, I'll show you how and why, and then we'll just go ahead with the settings. Now, because there's a conflict with my sound card with using OBS, I've previously recorded some guitars and some drums, but I can go through it and show you what I did there. So I'm just gonna go to this project here. Now what I've done is, usually when you start a project, there's a MIDI track like this that's already set by default to piano. What you do is go into these keys and then edit. Well, you go into those keys, choose your VSTI instrument, and go into ezdrummer, and that will select it for you. And to customize it, you go into edit, and what I've done is I went into my kit and chose metal, just because it's a already processed kit. You can do processing by switching back to basic. I'll just keep that for now. For ideas and recording spontaneous stuff, you might as well just go with a straightforward processed one. That's what I've done there. What I've included here is accounting, so I know when to start recording over my my sample. But before I did this, I went into preferences, and now I'm set to wave, because this is the only way the OBS would work in conjunction with Mixcraft. But usually I go for ACO, and ACO is the standard nowadays. You will just have to select your input. Usually nowadays sound cards come with 2 inputs, 1 and 2. So mine's already selected. I've got about 6 or 8. But I'm using only the first 2 of them, so they're already showing up there. If I were to choose another one, or other 2 inputs, I would just drop that line there. And of course the playback output, my speakers are plugged into 1 and 2. If I were to use something else or more, obviously there are more options there, but we'll just keep it simple. And when you're doing a project or anything, especially if it's just an idea, a small inspiration kind of thing just came to you, just keep it simple, record it, and expand on it later on, which Mixcraft is very, very good for. So what I did here was a bunch of stuff, not complicated anyway. Like you see here, you can edit these names for each individual track. You can add an icon to any of them. What I've done previously is I've recorded a DI track, so I've recorded my guitar through a DI box, and that went into my sound card. So to do that is just find out where your DI guitar goes in, because you might have a parallel processed one, so you might have the same signal going through a processor as well, so you can hear the distortion version as well when you're recording. It usually helps. And to do that, when you get a track, you want to select the input of that track. So we'll select what's going into it. Mine was right channel, and as you can see, it already armed itself. Now what I can do now is make sure my guitar is all tuned up. So we'll turn this button on, and we can just tune our guitar if you wanted to. So we'll have that. We can now start recording a guitar. I've previously done that. We can go ahead and choose a different color if you like. I like green for guitars and red for bass for some reason, but we're just gonna stick to this. And what I've done for the second track is I didn't go to a new one, but what I do normally, so I can make sure my inputs are all the same, I'll go and duplicate the track like this. Just duplicate track. I'll delete the track. So then your copied track has got the same inputs, so you're getting the signal from the same source. Now as you can see on the second track, I've already recorded a guitar, but it's got another lane. Now this lane happens when you start to record on the same track, and it's already got an audio file on there, and this helps me record in sync with the others. So if, let's say, I'll start recording again from here, I'll basically pay attention on what's happening above it, make sure everything's in the position that's meant to be. I can either do that or record on a different track, but since I'm on this track, I'll just use that. I might switch between the two like that, or sometimes I'll replace the tracks. And a lot of times when I'm recording, let's say I've just recorded this one, and for some reason I'd want to replace what's above it with what I've recorded below. And what I do is cut the piece that I want to, make a cut above it as well, delete that, and add this to it. And because we want to avoid crackles, pops, whatever sounds, nasty sounds, when this happens, usually you have to overlap it like that, so you don't get that nastiness. Don't go too far. I usually just go 1 bar. You don't want to go too much. That will silence your segment too much. And a lot of times you might be reduced to 1 bar, and 1 bar might be too much. In that instance, we'll go to snap to grid. So we'll take our snap off, and then we can play with it as much as we want. If we want to go 1 bar, or if we want to go half a bar or quarter of a bar, that's helped me in the past as well. Just gonna go back to snap to grid, and what I can do now is, because I'm happy with this segment replacing the segment that was here before, I can select this just like that, right click and merge it, and now it's a single file. Go back to undoing that. And of course we can go back to our file like it used to be. We can even delete the last section and stretch this one, which is the same file that it was before. Now if I play this in solo, you'll hear it's a DI guitar, and these long lines here, what I've done previously is, because the signal was too loud for as a track, I've just reduced some of the volume, and I'll show you how I did that right now. You just double click on it, envelopes, and what I do most of the time is just reduce it by a certain percentage. So I think I went 25% on here. I can boost it back 25%, and this has brought it back to its initial level to 0 dB. I'll reduce it back, envelopes, reduce 25%, and I've done the same for the other track as well. Now because I've got a DI track, I can add a plugin. I'm going to effects. Now select my effect. Now delete these so I can start from scratch. I'll select my Dominator plugin by Audio Assault, and I know I've got a previous tone set up, which is guitar 1, but to run through it I'll go to edit, and as you can see here I've added a screamer, pretty random setup. The amp head, I've cut down some of the gain, reduced some of the bass and mids, and left treble to 7.55, 56, and of course you can play with the mic as well. It's pretty decent sounding plugin, this one. Because we went in and fiddled with some of them, now it's gone back to custom. To go back to our tone, we go just click on the arrow and go to guitar 1 for this one. Now I've done the same for my other guitar here. The only difference is I've added an EQ, and I'll play these two together just to see how they sound. But before I do that, as you can see, I've soloed them. Now these, you can't really tell them apart because they're both centered. So what I'll do is pan them, and I like that there's not a round button like you have on real life consoles. You've just got a pan tab like that. So I'll just pan this right and pan this one 100% left. You can of course right click on that. Everything on here I think, you know, is easily accessible or easily discovered by clicking right click on everything, and you can be more exact, more precise here by working with percentages. So let's have a listen. As you can see, that was too hot for me, so I'm just gonna go onto my fader and fade it to 60% for this one. Now I made sure they're the exact volume. I didn't have to turn any knob by hand, manually, or with the mouse. Now of course you can go in, add some compression, add some EQ, add various effects to your liking. Mixcraft has got a lot of those, and of course you can use your own plugins. I'm just gonna go ahead and select acoustic EQ, and I've got a custom made one, which is guitar EQ. To show you what I've done there is reduce some of the bass and some mids, just scooped some bits in there, and I'll do same for the other one. I'll just select it, and just to loop it, I'm just gonna drag my mouse, left click and drag it, and then you can either press L for loop or just press this icon, and we're just gonna loop it to see how it sounds, difference between with EQ or not. So that's worked a bit. It's cleaned up some of the muddiness, but obviously you'll do this to your liking. What I'm gonna do next is, let's say this is just an idea. So I had this idea for a riff. I'm gonna send it to my bandmates to see their opinion on it. Maybe it gets developed in an entire song, or added to something, or just archived for future projects. And maybe I just want to export it as an MP3 now at this stage. Maybe I'll reduce some of it on some of the volume on the master volume, either this one or this one. So I'll reduce it to 80%. Have one more listen. Yes, clearly it sounds like an idea. It's not something very polished. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mix it down or export it to an MP3. I'm not gonna save any changes at this moment. I'm just gonna edit some details. Configure this. It's stereo. That's a nice bit rate over there. Okay. That tag info. Now, previously I've added some bits like title, author. Can be Mike, it can be me, can be, you know, somebody else, Mr. Dunphy. Year, copyright, and any comments. Usually I don't fill in these bits. It takes a lot of time, and they're better expressed in an email. Just gonna click that OK. Maybe change the name. Maybe song idea 2, and save it. And of course the Mixcraft will play it back to you, so you can hear what the MP3 sounds like. Now you can go back and save it in a better audio version, in a wave version. So I'll just go back, file, mix down to, and wave. Not gonna save any settings now. I might change something. Now there's a problem here because my idea, this segment of a song, will be saved into mono, which I don't want. So I'll go into details, configure this into stereo. Okay. Tag info, you'll have pretty much the same stuff. Okay, and save. Oh. Select the name and save. Takes a bit more because it's it's a format that encompasses more data than an MP3, and of course you want to play it back to you afterwards. But what happens if I want to mix down or to export these as individual files, because these are DI guitars, so they're dry. Maybe I want a different tone later on. Maybe I want to keep them. So for that, we need to make a couple of adjustments. First of all, when exporting guitar, as in this case, we're just gonna solo the track that we want to export, and you want to export it as raw as you can. So for that, we'll go back and make some changes. Basically, we'll bring the audio file back to its initial form. And as you can remember, we made some volume adjustments, so for that we'll go back into envelopes, boost it back to its initial volume. With the fader, we're going to bring the fader to 100% back, and we don't want it on our right side when we're about to send it to an amp to reamp it or add a plugin to it. So we're just gonna double click on it, and that will bring it back to center. And of course, being a DI guitar, you don't want any effects on it, so we're just gonna deselect all the effects on it. Of course, we'll go to our master track. This is very important, and not to forget, go back to your master track and edit back your details, so 100%. We want this track as raw as possible. We can play with it later. And because it's soloed already, we can mix it down. And to mix it down, we usually mix it to wave. No changes. We don't want to save any changes that we've done now. Just put guitar right September, and we've had our track saved to stereo, but this being a guitar, we want it in mono, so we'll go into edit details and configure it back to mono. Of course, gonna play it back for us. Gonna deselect that and do the same for the second track. Gonna double click on that to bring it back to center. 100% on the fader. Envelopes. So that's a right click, envelopes. Boost it back 25%, and now the line's on the center. So that means it's back to original volume. If you were to have that, that's a fade in, so we don't want that. We're just gonna undo it. That's 100%. We're gonna deselect all the effects, solo it, so it's the only track that's gonna get exported. Gonna mix it down to wave. And it's playing back now again. Now, what I haven't done is actually save the project. So what you want to do is have everything on and save it first, and then go into exporting everything you want to export. Same goes for the MIDI file. We just solo it, and if you wanted as an audio file, we follow the same process for MP3 or WAV, but most of the time we're gonna save it as MIDI file. Maybe you'll do some adjustments on here by hand, and you're probably gonna struggle to find it again. So you might as well just save your MIDI file as well with the rest of them in your project folder. We just save it as MIDI file. Yes, let's save everything. September drums MIDI. Continue. And of course, it's trying to play back an audio file that's MIDI. Sometimes it comes up as as keys, don't worry about it. Another thing that I would like to touch upon is these lanes here. You can easily add another lane by right clicking it, lanes, add, and it adds another lane, and you can zoom in and you can extend it like that to have it as big as it was before and just work with that. You can have 3-4 lanes. Lanes in Mixcraft, you can actually use them as tracks. If you're recording, I don't know, 4 guitars, maybe you want to have 2 guitars on a track on different lanes. But usually I just use lanes for the process of recording. It's just easier than using different tracks. I might record a track on here, and for the other guitar, so for the left hand side one, I'll use the same lane but only drag it downwards when I'm done. It just speeds up the process, and that's pretty much it. I hope you found it somewhat useful. Hope you enjoyed it. If you got any questions, I'm open to them. Until next time, take care guys.